We enjoy your music, the spirit of love. Thank you so much. On this special Sunday, I want to say and greet each other again, Happy New Year. The first Sunday of 2018, we have invited a globally well-known scholar, Dr. Namsoon Kang, as a preacher today. It is truly my honor and privilege to introduce her today. Dr. Kang studied at Methodist Theological University, Seoul, Korea, and the University of Bonn in Germany, and completed her PhD at Drew University in the States. Previously, Dr. Kang taught at the Faculty of Divinity, Cambridge University in Cambridge, the United Kingdom, and the Methodist Theological University in Seoul. Now she has joined the Brite Theological School faculty since 2006. She can write both in Korean and English. Her recent books include Cosmopolitan Theology, Handbook of Theological Education in World Christianity, and Diasporic Feminist Theology. Teaching, researching, and writing from interdisciplinary spaces, her particular theoretical interests are in discourses of apophatic theology, philosophy, deconstruction, postmodernism, postcolonialism, gender studies, and diaspora. Namsoon is currently working as the president of the World Conference of Associations of Theological Institutions and global faculty for the Global Ecumenical Theological Institute. We are so blessed to have her as a speaker today. She will preach in the title of Church is Not a Salvation Club. The subtitle is Towards a Jesusian Church-to-Come. Let's welcome Dr. Kang with our big applause.
You reminded me of that. I have to update my profile and my school website, but thank you. And thank you for the wonderful music, for the choir, which is such a profound language beyond language. I really appreciate your beautiful song that makes my time here really rewarding. No one can deny that we humans are in a way half animal, but there is one thing that makes humans very unique and different from the animal, asking and wrestling with a fundamental question, such as, what is the meaning of life? Animals do not ask such a question of the meaning of their lives because their existence is rooted in instinct. Unlike an animal, humans take their own lives when they cannot find the meaning of life. In The Myth of Sisyphus, Albert Camus says, there is only one really serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. Deciding whether or not life is worth living is to answer the fundamental questions in philosophy. All other questions follow from that. I always believe that a good question is an invitation to a world of profound thinking. So let me open my sermon with some questions for you as an invitation. What is Sunday for you? Why are you here on this Sunday afternoon when you could have been doing something fun, relaxing, or entertaining? Sunday is in a way a rebellion against weekdays. Sunday is not and should not be a mere continuation of other weekdays. If Sunday is a mere continuation or a repetition of weekdays, thinking about the same stuff that we usually do during weekdays, what is the point of coming to church on Sunday? To observe a Sunday in a meaningful way, we should make an intentional, decisive discontinuity from weekdays and intentional detachment from our daily lives. so that we can ask root questions that we do not usually ask in our mundane lives and encounter a new world, a new birth of our own being. In this sense, Sunday should be an event of new birth, which would mean we could experience a critical before and after the Sunday. If there is no before and after, you are wasting your time and energy. You withdraw yourself from the weekdays in order to encounter the root questions such as, who am I? Why am I doing what am I doing? What is it that would make my life meaningful? Or as St. Augustine asks, what do I love when I love my God? Many Christians often say Jesus is the answer. But in order to make Jesus as the one who offers answer, we must know what our questions are. Only when we have courage and intentionality to encounter these root questions, we would be able to find answers. But when you do not have questions, you never get the answers. In this sense, questions are more profound than answers. Therefore, do not rush to find ready-made answers for your own life. Finding answers is a lifelong journey. To be is to inherit, that the being of what we are is, first of all, inheritance. Whether we like it or know it or not, inheritance is not about receiving something or having it in our own possession to use as we see fit. In this sense, inheritance is never a given, but it comes as a task. We have inherited the world, civilization, society, traditions, religion, and so on. You have inherited the long-standing tradition of Chungdong Methodist Church, for example. If the inheritance is not just a given, but a task, what tasks do we have to carry out? What kind of responsibility we have to inheritance of Christian churches? The inheritance of tradition comes as an injunction to which we must respond. Inheriting the tradition of a church should not mean a blind acceptance of the inheritance. Inheriting the tradition of a church does not mean to be a blind defender or transmitter of Christian tradition. For all the tradition of Christian churches has often carried dark side, implicitly or explicitly, bounded by religious or cultural superiorism, ethnocentrism, homophobism, exclusive nationalism, sexism, racism, ableism, and so on. If the dark side is a part of the tradition of a church we inherit, what kind of responsibility we should take as an heir of the tradition of a church? Again, inheriting the tradition of a church is not just a given but a task. The task involves a double responsibility. First, a contestation, and second, the affirmation or innovation. We must contest what is deadly, discriminative, exclusive in the inheritance of the tradition. At the same time, we must affirm what in it gives life, which also require innovating new tradition as well. In order to take up this double responsibility to inheritance of the tradition, it is necessary for us to read and to study the tradition in question. The two biblical texts that we read this afternoon offer us significant insights as to what it means by being Jesus' disciple, what it means by being church, and what religion should be about. Jesus' message in John 13 is like Jesus' farewell address. Jesus introduces a new commandment to his disciples in his farewell address. Quote, I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Jesus' farewell address contains extremely significant theological insights for the question of what it means to be Jesus' disciples. Many Christians have regarded being Jesus' disciples as identical with having membership in a Christian church. However, Jesus' farewell address affirms the essential nature of being Jesus' disciples, which is practicing love, exercising an unconditional hospitality, showing compassion to the other, to the stranger, to the foreigner, to the guest. Jesus presented the core of his teaching in the following statement in Matthew 25, verse 40. The truth is, every time you did this for the least of my sisters and brothers, you did it for me. The name Jesus here symbolizes a substitution which entails being with and for the other. Nowadays, for a large number of Christians, church is becoming like a salvation club. In this salvation club mentality, Christians usually think that as long as they maintain their membership of a church, the salvation is guaranteed. I don't know about you, but ask the question to yourself, why am I here? For this kind of Christians, being a Christian is like you have a salvation insurance, just in case. Churches become the places where people exercise a kind of spiritual capitalism, in which an economy of exchange operates, and maximizing the self-interest rather than the common good is the only prime virtue and goal of a people's religious life. However, according to these two biblical texts, following Jesus, being disciple of Jesus, is far from being a member of a private salvation club. Today, I would like to use a term that I coined, Jesusian. I use this term in my classroom and lectures in the States, but not in Korea. This is my first time to use this new word, Jesusian, rather than Christian. The term Christian has a strong link to Christianity as an institutionalized religion, whereas Jesusian is to acknowledge the discrepancy between Jesus and Christianity as an institutionalized religion, and further to emphasize and focus on the very life and teaching of Jesus. So we are not only Christians, but also we should be Jesusian. What Jesus teaches from these texts are about religion in general and church in particular. According to Jesus, religion, being Jesus' disciple and Jesusian church, should be about love, responsibility, and hospitality to the others in our individual and collective lives. In this sense, a philosopher by the name of Jacques Derrida points out, religion is responsibility, or it is nothing. Again, religion is responsibility, or it is nothing. In this context, evil is non-responsibility. What Jesus also offers here in this text is more questions than answers. Jesus is assigning us a significant task to work on by urging us to wrestle with further questions in our own context. Those questions can be like, what constitutes loving one another today? Who are the hungry? Who are the thirsty? Who are the stranger? Who are the naked? Who are the sick? Who are the imprisoned today? Not only in the city of Seoul or within the Korean territory, but also other parts of the world. Or what do I love when I love my God or my Jesus? Here, Jesus is very clear that loving one another is not just a romantic act that does not want to see the dark side, challenging or often disturbing side of love. Loving one another is a risk-taking act and taking an action for change the existing economic, socio-political system in order to love the hungry, the thirsty, the stranger, the naked, the sick, and the imprisoned. According to the life and teaching of Jesus in the gospel, Jesus hardly mentioned about religion or church. Jesus never shows any desire to find an institutionalized structure that we call religion or church. Jesus did not intend to found anything but to announce the good news to the marginalized, to the poor, to the hungry, to the sick, to the imprisoned, to the excluded, to the stranger, and to share his life with them and among them, compassionately and responsibly. We must remind ourselves that the church is the archive of Jesus, and the church is never about having its own power and authority. The church defines and determines what Jesus stands for and what Jesus would do here and now. So the primary duty of the church is therefore to bear the memory of Jesus and ask itself the question, what we must say and do in the importantly different situation between Jesus' time and time that we live now today. There are two kinds of churches. One is the responsible and mature church, and the other one is the irresponsible and immature church. The responsible and mature church is a church that lives in the critical tension between the church as it is and the church as it ought to be. The church as it ought to be always remains the church to come. In this sense, the church as it is always already the plan B, never a plan A. The church to come is the church as a site of the unconditional hospitality, the site of radical responsibility to the others, not only close others, but also distant others, and the site of unconditional loving the others in our reality, where the marginalized, the excluded exist, suffer in various ways. The church to come dreams a world where all singular persons in all places, countries, cultures, religion, and regions, and all of genders, races, classes, sexualities, abilities, enjoy the cosmic conviviality in the world that God created and loves. Inheriting the tradition of church is not merely for a repetition of the tradition or justification of doctrine and polity, but motivating people in the church and society toward the better practices of what Jesus asked us to do. People outside the church would value doctrinal confession or long-standing tradition, not for the word or claim to truth or authority by the church, but for the ways in which the church and Jesusians in it ever enlarge the circle of inclusion of justice and equality for all singular persons in all places. What would happen if Jesus shows up in the Chungdong Methodist Church next Sunday? Perhaps Jesus would remind us again and again that you love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciple. And every time you practice radical hospitality for the least of my sisters and brothers, you did it for me. Let us, Jesusian, continue to dream an impossible dream for the church to come, where a new practice of radical neighbor love, radical inclusion, and radical hospitality become actualized, which cross exclusive borders of citizenships, nationality, gender, class, sexuality, or ability, and regard all persons in all places as uniquely singular persons each of whom has a proper name and unique face in the image of God. Amen.
Thank you for the word. Please rise for the singing of the Lord's Prayer.